Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the main event. You're here with me, Daniel.
And Aaron.
Aaron, first of all, sad times. We've got to give out a couple of commiserations. Obviously, as the entire world knows, the great Maradona has passed away, unfortunately, my dad's personal hero. But also, Papa Bouba Diop sadly passed away, 42, I think it was yesterday or the day before, which is absolutely shocking. And I mean, he's responsible for one of the great underdog teams he was a part of, the Senegal team in the 2002 World Cup. I know that you won't know anything about that, Aaron, but when France are the reigning world champions, and how old was I? 12, I think I was. It was the one of the first games in that competition, and Senegal beat them, and it was just unbelievable. And to see the reaction of all those players when they scored the goal was just incredible. And he was a part of that team. Obviously, had a lot of time in the Premier League as well. So it's really sad to see him go. And really bad news about Raul Jimenez. Obviously, the extent of his injury hasn't been confirmed yet. So I don't really want to go into speculation. But we know that this can be career ending. So fingers and toes firmly crossed that he makes a full safe recovery and he can continue to play the game we all love. So I just want to get those out the way first. Bit of sad times.
I was quite moving, all of the Italian teams this weekend paying tribute to Maradona, obviously because he had spent a few years there with Napoli back when Italian football, I think it wasn't as developed, and Maradona put it on the map really. And so lots of big tributes to him, people even having like Maradona t-shirts, and I think the Napoli game was definitely the most moving. They beat Roma 4-0, and it was Insigne when he scored, he got the Maradona t-shirt out, and you could see the emotion with a lot of people, especially like Carlo Ancelotti in the Everton game. He was crying. Definitely huge impact. And even though I didn't know about the 2002 World Cup, I recognized the name. And yeah, Raul Jimenez, speedy recovery, and I hope it's not bad news.
Yeah, hopefully we can cheer some people up with some fantasy football talk though. So let's get on to that. With this game week coming up, I've had actually a really bizarre amount of requests for Limitless Wildcarders still. I thought that a lot of them would have been used, but I do appreciate the position they're in because I was so very, very nearly in this position myself. I am grateful that I used it last week, although I might not have sounded it in our review podcast. I think looking back now with some of the news that has came out this week, I'm actually quite happy about it. So we're going to put an emphasis on two things in this podcast. Obviously, we're going to go through our usual, go through each team, what do we think the scoreline is going to be, how do we think we're going to progress, etc. But we're going to put another emphasis on limitless wildcard players, and we are also going to put an emphasis on which players do we think are safe for both game weeks, and that is obviously massively speculative because anything can happen, especially in the current climate of the footballing world. But to the knowledge that we have, into the data that we have, what are the smart decisions we can make? So that's really what we want to be trying to put all of our thoughts into today. That being said, Group A is done and dusted from the league leaders' point of view in Bayern Munich, but it's all to play for the other teams still, as unlikely as that may seem. Bayern Munich won at the weekend 3-1. And I want to get this off my chest. I mentioned it on the review podcast last week about my Kingsley Coman decision. So I had Kingsley Coman in my team. I'd battled a few people on Twitter to say I'm confident he is going to start. He played an hour. He scored a goal. He's got subbed off. That is all the indications he's going to play. And then the German media forecasted that he wouldn't start. A lot of people on Twitter forecasted or thought, shall we say, for their point of view, that he wouldn't start. And with me being on Limitless, I felt it was too much of a risk. Kingsley Coman this week got a goal and an assist and was subbed off after an hour. I have him in my team and he's not going anywhere. it's a case of he's in form. You don't want to change your form players. Bayern Munich still don't want to be losing games. They're a top class club. You don't, whether you've qualified or not, you still don't go out to lose games. Rotation is likely, and I think he could be an early substitute. But at this point, that's a risk I've got to take. I don't want to waste a transfer on him, especially when he can do damage. So he's there to stay for me. Douglas Costa is likely to still be a substitute, and I still think it'll just be standard fare. Gnabry on one side, Muller in behind Lewandowski. They are playing Atletico Madrid. This isn't a cakewalk. I think Hansi Flick's going to want his best team out there for this game so that he can absolutely put the nail in this coffin. And also I don't think this is true, but just from my own point of view, if I was a manager, I'd want to take as many points away from Atletico Madrid as possible so that they had a less chance of getting through to the next round, because at some point these two might play each other again. And with a full team for Atletico Madrid and in a knockout competition, they're not a team you really want to be playing. So it makes more sense to make sure, and especially with them in second place, that you can possibly write them off the map, basically. If you've got Bayern Munich players, I'd stick with them. If you don't have them, though, I wouldn't twist. Atletico Madrid isn't going to be an easy game. I know that they won 4-0 the first time round. Or was it 4-1 the first time round? Either way, they scored 4 goals.
Yeah, 4-0.
4-0. It's a case of, I don't think it'll be that again. We've mentioned this before about other teams, that I think that opening round of fixtures is a possible anomaly because of how much teams had played. They're all in the swing of it now. And Bayern Munich do still have a couple of major injuries. Kimmich, point in case. So I'd expect less goals in this one than the first time round. Bayern Munich are a little out of sorts. They won 3-1 at the weekend, but at one point they were 2-1 down and the goal got disallowed. So I haven't seen the goal. I don't know if it was rightfully disallowed or not. I imagine it was. We'll just presume it was. But it doesn't exactly scream huge confidence. The other goal scorers in this game were Lewandowski and Costa. Muller and Sané got the 2 assists outside of the Koeman goal and assist. If you're on a limitless, you can risk it because this is a Tuesday game. I would go with the idea of playing at least 9 outfield players that are playing on Tuesday, if not 10. You may as well go 10, but if you think, maybe the 10 players I'm going to play aren't quite as strong, if I do go 9 and then 4, as far as outfield goes. But I do think it's Lewandowski and Koeman. Gnabry isn't the same player as he was last season. He's just not hit that form. So I wouldn't be overly confident going with him. I'd rather go with Sané. Even though Sané's on the bench, he's got more attacking output at the minute. He's still getting goals and assists off the bench. So I'd rather do that. But even then on a limitless and you're paying that much money, that's a punt if I've ever seen one. When I'd much rather take a Tuesday punt, because Tuesdays are for punts and Wednesdays are for your fixed option. Like, I want to take a risk on a Tuesday and safety on a Wednesday. That's my opinion. Let's jump into Atletico Madrid because they're second in the table anyway. Carrasco and Felix were benched in the 1-0 win. I mean, the 1-0 win was an own goal, so it wasn't exactly an outstanding performance from Atletico Madrid. They are struggling a little bit. Costa has a deep vein thrombosis, which means he's out. They think it was caused by his coronavirus. And Suarez has returned a second positive test. I just think that's worrying for Atletico Madrid. I can't really see them having any potency against Bayern Munich because it's all going to come down to João Felix's creativity, essentially. Maybe like the other players can chip in around the box, but it's going to come down to that and how long can Yannick Carrasco run really quickly in a straight line. That is going to be their threat. for the evening against Bayern Munich. And without a clever player like Suarez or an irritating powerhouse like Costa up front with Felix, I don't think there's enough to occupy the Bayern Munich defence, because they're just going to be able to double up on Felix, essentially, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, like, going on your point of Limitless, I don't think there's anyone here that I would include in my team. But in terms of a safe bet to play both game weeks, because of the situation that Atletico Madrid find themselves in, if you don't have a Limitless, João Felix could be a good option for game week 6. I think the Atletico Madrid defense are probably not going to be changed. However, they're going to play Bayern Munich and Salzburg. So that's a huge gamble, but it's one where you know that they're probably going to play, unlike other teams where you might not have the same sureties. So I think Felix will potentially play both and the defense, but in terms of Limitless, there's no one here that I would want to take a risk of when you have unlimited budget.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I wanted Felix, I'd get him in for the last game at his price. I don't think I'd want to have a player of that price against Bayern Munich when they're the weaker going forward. The really interesting game, the game that I want to watch, which is an early Tuesday kickoff, so check your teams, is Moscow versus Salzburg. I think it's going to be a fascinating game. Moscow find themselves third with 3 points. So if Atletico lose and they win this game, boom, they're going to second with... I appreciate it. Is it going to be? I think it's going to be Bayern Munich for the last game they've got to play.
Yeah,
which is tough. But Atletico Madrid also have to go to Salzburg, so it's just, I appreciate there's 4 points between Atletico Madrid and Salzburg. But when there's 6 points to play for, and Atletico Madrid have to play Bayern Munich and Salzburg, it's a lot more evenly poised than what the points might suggest.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think from second to fourth, this group's really, really tasty. What I will say with Moscow is they rotated in their 0-0 draw at the weekend quite heavily. And essentially, Anton Miranchuk is still the boy. He's still the one that I'd want to go for. We have solved the mystery. It took all of 2 seconds to solve the mystery of the Miranchuk brothers, the twins. I finally decided to Google it. It wasn't that hard to find. I don't see why it's took with this long to do it. 5 game weeks. But yeah, the twins. So maybe that's why people have been choosing Alexei over Anton. But he's the one Lokomotiv Moscow player that I would be really keen on getting, because I think he's going to play both games, and I think he's got a fair chance in both games in terms of getting a goal. I think he's still around 6 million, so it's not going to eat too much of your budget up. And that's the sort of player that I'm looking for, a player that's just going to play both games for about 6 million and has a chance. With a player like Felix at 9, it's not a chance you want, it's an expectation. So with Miranchuk, his record's okay. He's been fully rested this weekend. I think he's good to go. With Salzburg, they won 8-2. Koita got a hat-trick off the bench. Slobo got a hat-trick. Granted, 2 of them were pens, but he's the pen taker, so that's good news. Berisha got a goal, and Adeyemi got a goal. Slobo played 75 minutes and got subbed off, so I imagine that little bit of rest there is for these Champions League games. There are 3 players from Salzburg I'd be looking at. Berisha, 7.1 million forward. That's real punty. So he's probably the last out of this lot that I'd look at. Koita, 5.9 forward. Budget, if you're not on a Limitless and you're just looking for differentials to catch up somewhere, at 5.9 when he's just got a hat-trick off the bench, he might get a start. And against Lokomotiv, why not? And then obviously the man himself, Slobotsyn, 7.1 million midfielder for Szoboszlai. I appreciate he missed a couple of sitters against Bayern, but I think his record and his hat-trick at the weekend suggests that might just be a bit of a blip. In Szoboszlai played both games. He's the main man. He's the focal point of that team. And if they want to get into Europa League or even qualify from this group, he's got to play every minute of the next 2 games. And at 7.1 million, I think that's a really good bet to go for. What do you think of these 2 teams and this game?
I think Moranchuk 6.1 is definitely a consideration for the last 2 game weeks for me. But I am looking towards the Salzburg team and looking to see who I can get in, knowing that they have to come out all guns blazing against these 2 defensive teams, that they're not going to kind of, if Lokomotiv and Atletico score, it's only going to be like 1 or 2. I can't see them scoring more than that. So Salzburg have the firepower to score 2+ goals easily, depending on if like all goes their way. And so I'm looking at some attacking midfielders, definitely some of their strikers, so I can put that money into different positions. And yeah, depending on what we find out for the rest of these teams, I am definitely looking at bringing someone in for this game. At the minute, budget-wise, I am leaning towards Moranchuk just because of the penalty appeal.
On to Group B. I love this group as well. It's so entertaining. Mönchengladbach, top of the group with 8 points. They won 4-1 at the weekend. Thuram, Neuhaus, Wendt, Wolf with the goals. Neuhaus also with an assist. Player got an assist. He played the full 90, so I'm not too sure what that means for his involvement this week. But a win sees them qualify, and they did play a strong team. Stindl was rested, so good news for Stindl owners. But it's a case of, I think Mönchengladbach are going to go for it. They're playing Inter, who are statistically the weakest team in this group. They're a bit out of sorts. Appreciated the one at the weekend, which I'm sure you'll talk to us about, Aaron. But they're going for it. They're in the best form of this group. And the thing that I really want to talk about were the defenders. So Ben Zabani is the left back who had COVID. I think he might still have COVID. I'm not too sure when he's due back. And that is where we, and you in particular, Aaron, recommended Wendt, 4.3 million. Wendt spelt with a W. He's got another goal at the weekend, along with his goal in the Champions League. And to be honest, I can see him starting against Inter. The issue is, I think for game week 6, he might not, because Benzabani might be back. But if he is the starting left back and they've qualified, then actually Wendt might play. So it's so up in the air between those two that actually I like Elvedi at 4.5 million. He got a lot of points during the week against Shakhtar as well. And at 4.5 million, he is a starting centre-back. We know centre-backs get rotated less than any other position other than goalkeeper. So if you want to be safe, I'd go with him. If you've got a big set of cojones on you, genuinely go with Wendt. You can talk to us about what you think Inter's chances are in this game shortly. But that is who I'd be looking at. And of course, Stindl goes through him. He's been fantastic the last couple of game weeks. He's got a full rest this weekend. So I wouldn't look past those players. Thuram got subbed off as well. Looks like he got a bit of a rest. So if you've got Thuram in your team, it's looking good for him to play. Go Gladbach. Honestly, they're in such good form. Even on a Limitless, when their players aren't the most expensive, who cares? It's all about points, not price. So I wouldn't have any hesitation going Lars Stindl in this game, and a defender as well. Against Inter, for me, the way that I'm looking at it, Inter look quite impotent at the minute. So I appreciate the Brave saying that when they won 3-0 at the weekend, but that's a one-off game. In the Champions League, they've not looked fantastic so far. What do you think of Mönchengladbach?
I think we all fall into the trap, me and you included, that you only focus on getting the most expensive players in, and you kind of, when you take the budget out, you kind of like, oh, I can fit him in, I can fit him in, I can fit him in. And both times that we have Limitless, we have missed out on huge hauls from Mönchengladbach against Shakhtar, and that was us maybe not looking as much into Mönchengladbach, where Shakhtar looked quite impressive up to that game, so we kind of weren't sure what way to go about it. But that's a mistake that we have both made, that we can hopefully help those who haven't Limitless yet, that don't look at just the price points. Mönchengladbach are one of the most informed teams as of right now in the Champions League, and just go for some of these players, and you can fit Stindl alongside loads of premium midfielders if you want. His 8 million price tag would normally mean that he wasn't selected as much, but he's one of them players where he's very impressive so far. And the defenders, I don't know about when you Limitless, Dan, but you almost trick yourself into doubling up on a team. I mean, Cameron, who will join us later, he tripled up on Chelsea last week before his team didn't save. And so he would have lost a clean sheet for 3 different players. And so you kind of get a bit shocked of the price. I feel like overwhelmed maybe. It's kind of like a trap chip, I think. So Mönchengladbach, just get at least one of their players in, because you want the people who are going to play definitely on the Tuesday, so that when it comes to Wednesday and there's a surprise in the lineups, you don't get shocked because you still have a good of a chance of fielding a full starting 11. That's my advice on Mönchengladbach.
If you don't have a Limitless chip and you can't afford Stindl, Neuhaus is 6.5 million. I think he's a really good choice, and I think he's a good differential. So I wouldn't have any fear going with him either. Stindl would be the first choice, but Neuhaus would be a great backup as a midfielder on the game for Gladbach. Real Madrid, second in the group with 7 points, just 1 point behind Gladbach. They lost 2-1 at the weekend. I think everyone's seen the images of Courtois. Casemiro with the goal, again, popping up. We've talked about him, about his ball recovery potential. Against Shakhtar, this is his forte, an attacking team that have little quality. I think Casemiro will be a great pick for this game. Real Madrid need to go out and win so that they can qualify. And I think they do qualify if they win and Mönchengladbach beats Inter. So I don't think Zidane will mess about for this one. I think it's get the job done. And even if they've got to take second place, so be it. They'll be playing Gladbach in the final game. So we'll see what we'll find out later on. But for this one, he's just got to go get the win. And after getting beat 3-2, it's a little bit like Man United against Istanbul, where I think Real Madrid were embarrassed and they'll want to put that to bed. Casemiro could be at the heart of that. That being said, Hazard got injured again, so I wouldn't be going near him. Vinicius Jr. looked lively off the bench. Still no Benzema. But again, these are an early Tuesday kickoff. So we get to see their team. And we get to see if Casemiro's playing, if Vinicius Jr.'s playing, if Benzema's playing, if these players are playing. If they are, Casemiro's the one for me that I think should be in everyone's team regardless. Especially with these ball recovery points as a backup to his attacking potential.
Yeah, in the reverse fixture, he got 15 ball recoveries. So he got 5 extra points. So that's the equivalent of a goal. And so, he's got a track record of getting points in this fixture. And he's in form. He's one of their most reliable players right now in a team that it definitely isn't full strength. So they are going to give up opportunities, which means Casemiro, I feel like his ball recovery potential gives him a very, very safe floor. But you do obviously run risks of yellow card, red card because of that, as with any ball recovering midfielder. But he is the best of them, and his price point isn't that bad. We're going to go and touch on Man City later, but I think Gundogan to Casemiro is a very realistic transfer that people should be looking at for this game week, knowing that Real Madrid have to face and have to play as strong of a squad they can in the next 2 fixtures. So he'll be safe. He'll be one of the safest players for game week 6, in my opinion. So I think he definitely is one of them players that you should consider.
Shakhtar won 1-0 at the weekend. They're in third place with 4 points. Tete scored in like the 88th minute. I don't really want to talk too much about these because I wouldn't recommend them. If you're desperate, you can get Tete in. He is the most likely as ever. But I think the Shakhtar ship sailed. We mentioned last week in the review show, although I think it only got released like yesterday or today. We mentioned on that podcast that we think Shakhtar started so well because they'd played more games in their league. They'd sort of gotten over the cobwebs, whereas other teams hadn't, and they took full advantage of that. I think that advantage is gone, and I think the best they can hope for in neither of these games are draws. Like I say, if you are looking for someone, Tete is the realistic choice, basically. I wouldn't be looking at anyone else, not even there. They've got a £4 million defender. I can't remember his name, but I still wouldn't go for him. If you've got him, keep him. But I wouldn't be looking for anyone. And especially if you're on a Limitless, avoid.
I agree. Nothing else to add to that, really.
Do you want to talk to us about Inter and their 3-0 win?
Yeah, so what made their 3-0 win impressive was it was against Sassuolo, who them alongside AC Milan are the only unbeaten teams in Serie A. Juventus, I think, got beat last week so that they were no longer unbeaten. But they beat an unbeaten team who was second. They then replaced them as second, were top of the table for a little bit. And watching the game, watching the highlights, the first goal, it was kind of like a lapse in concentration from Sassuolo. It was very easy for Sanchez to score. And the goal after that, well-worked corner. But the third goal was very, very impressive. Really, really good goal. Nothing to like be on like a goal of the month highlight reel, but like it was a good finish, and you'd be very happy if one of your defensive midfielders scored that. I think in terms of the Champions League, they are not in a good position. However, in the build-up to this match, the Mönchengladbach manager said that he expects Inter to progress and still qualify. I think that's just niceness and a little bit of
that's bold, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. He said they need 6 points, and I can see them getting it.
So, what?
Yeah, that's what he said in an interview in the German.
Surely he's joking. Surely he's having a little laugh to himself there.
Yeah, it's there. You can watch the interview, but I mean, I just think that's crazy that he's coming out and saying that. I think it's just kind of one of them things where you're downplaying your own chances to kind of take the pressure off your team, because there's no way he looks at this Inter team and thinks they're going to beat us. My only worry is that Lukaku, he didn't play. Well, he hasn't been starting recently, and even when he has, he's been substituted quite early. So I don't know if Conte is trying to show some hard love for him, and as history shows, hard love and Lukaku really, really gets the best out of him. Jokes intended.
I was going to say, he's not a fan of hard love. He likes lovely, cuddly, smushy love.
Exactly. And so
likes chocolates and flowers, Lukaku.
And so even though I think Lautaro is guaranteed to start, he's been playing well. Lukaku is a risk, in my opinion. I think because of the circumstances, I think he'll start, but if the things go bad, I don't think he'll stay on the pitch long enough for you to get the most benefit out of a 10.9 million striker when you've got Haaland and stuff around the same price. So in terms of a Limitless, he's a huge, huge gamble. So I would not, in my opinion, I wouldn't. If you had to choose between the two and you're determined to get a player in, I'd go Martinez. And in terms of the rest of the team, they're not really settled on a defense, like on who their set defenders are. Plus, Vidal got a red card in the Champions League, so that's less protection that they have for this game, and so it boosts Mönchengladbach's appeal. But I think as a result of that, I think Gagliardini, Barella, and even Nangolan are probably the midfield three that they're going to play. And so see what happens with that. Barella's a great talent, but I don't think he's fantasy viable. So in short, I wouldn't pick anyone. And if this game does go south, I can see him even fielding a weak team next week because of where they are in the league, trying to be as close to the top of the table as they can before Christmas. And with the average age of the squad, I can see Conte doing that. So yeah, it's a huge gamble with Inter Milan. You just don't know which one is going to turn up. But taken from the Mönchengladbach manager, Rose, it's probably some pronunciation on that, but Rose, he thinks that Inter are going to progress. So unless he's fielding a team of under 11s, I don't think that you should take his words to heart. And it's just a huge gamble.
I agree. Totally agree. Now, before we go on to Group C, we've got a very special guest joining us. Once again, it's Cameron Sugar Babes Pods.
Hello.
Cameron, you've got to push the button and press confirm before your team resets and goes. What you doing, man?
Oh, it was a rookie mistake, but I did win the vote on the poll. So the positives and negatives.
Your team didn't do too badly, to be fair. For anyone that doesn't understand the context of what we're talking about, just go on our Twitter at UCL Fantasy Pod. Like that segue. I'm getting pro at this. Where I posted Cameron's team for Gameweek 4, where he had put a wildcard team in, a limitless wildcard team in, but forgot to press confirm. So he actually just had the same team that he always did. But you did all right, didn't you?
Yeah, 51 points from 10 players and no captain.
51 points, no captain, 8 players starting and no goalkeeper. So that was all right, to be fair. Cameron, just in time to join for Group C. We'll start right off for Man City, winning 5-0 at the weekend. We don't need to go too much into the game, but one thing that I've found really interesting is Pep Guardiola's comments today that there's no such thing as Pep Roulette, that it's not a case of resting players, it's a case of form. So if he picks the 11 players that he thinks have been playing the best. Gundogan played a full, he played at the very least. Did he play a full 90 minutes this weekend?
Yeah, he did.
Played a lot of minutes.
Yeah, he did.
So that has a lot of question marks, really, over what team he's going to play. And I don't like it. I don't want anything to do with it. I thought it was pretty set with Pep Roulette, where it was a rotation based on fitness, with the odd change here and there. But he is just impossible to guess. I'm curious about Raheem Sterling because he didn't play at all at the weekend. And if Pep's words are true, then will he play in the Champions League? I think he will, because they've already qualified, and technically this is a game that Sterling can be played in to regain some of his form. But Raheem Sterling's been a bit of a shadow of his previous self this season so far. What do you guys make of this?
Well, the commentator on Match of the Day said it perfectly. Mahrez, the thing that's hindered him at Man City is the amount of rotation. But scoring a hat-trick, yes, it's against Burnley, who Man City have scored 5 against last 3 times we've played them at home. He still scored a hat-trick, and the hat-trick, you should continue in a team if you score a hat-trick. It doesn't matter who it's against. But Ferran Torres on the other side scored, but also got subbed off, which makes me think he might play, and he has done fairly decent since joining Man City. But they have only won 2 of the last 3 games, and they haven't really scored much apart from the Burnley game. So that could hinder them, while Porto have scored quite a few and only been beaten once in the last 6.
Yeah, my favorite articles to read is the local Manchester papers that try and predict the lineups. And I read a few, but there's a general consensus that Guardiola is going to use the Fulham match on the weekend to get people to regain their confidence. So the predicted 11 that he has, that the general consensus among the Manchester papers is that this is going to be the starting lineup. Edison, Cancelo right back, Eric Garcia, Laporte, Zinchenko, Fernandinho, Foden, Bernardo Silva, and then a front three of Torres, Mahrez, Jesus, because Aguero's injured. So Jesus is probably the safest. But that
No Kevin De Bruyne.
No, according to the consensus, is that they want to keep him fit for the Premier League running. They don't want to risk injuring him when qualification is the biggest thing that Pep's concerned about. And so, I mean, that makes him really good for Fantasy Premier League if people are looking to get in a De Bruyne. But according to all the papers, that's what they have as the predicted 11. But I don't know how accurate these are. I just like to read them to kind of feel at peace that I'm not the only one struggling with all of these transfer dilemmas. And a lot of pundits are saying that, oh, Man City are back to their best against Burnley. And I mean, I wouldn't say they're back to the best yet. They've got a good track record against Burnley. I think this game is going to show us what kind of Man City to expect moving forward in the run of favourable fixtures that they have in the run-up to Christmas and beyond. So it's going to be hard to predict, but because Aguero isn't in the squad, I think Jesus is the safest to start up front, but he has started Torres and Sterling there this season. So who knows, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say Torres might be going up front, but you never know with Pep Guardiola. So, but at least Eric Garcia might start, world class.
You're on the right podcast for this, aren't you, Cameron? I think my advice would be don't go anywhere near Man City players. Even Gundogan is not safe anymore. So I just wouldn't go anywhere near them. I'm frightened. And I don't like what you just said there, Aaron. I hope you're completely wrong. I hope the Manchester press is as reliable as the German press with regards to starting lineups. Because in FPL, I've just taken Sterling out because I'm sick to death of him. And I've put Bruno Fernandes in because I'm sick to death of him. So invariably, if Sterling plays against Fulham, you'll score 24 goals.
Well, I know what transfer I'm making this week. If you took Sterling out, I'm putting him in. No, in all seriousness, though, like Manchester City, because of where they are in the league, that has to be their priority. Like against Porto, I think you've got players like Foden, who was a sub at the weekend, scored last week in the Champions League. I think he has a higher percentage of starting. They've got Fernandinho back, who they're trying to get up to match fitness. And yeah, it's just hard to predict a Manchester City lineup, but what is new, what is wet. Like, I think what the interesting thing is that Cancelo if he plays, he's doing quite well at the minute, and he can play right back and left back. So because this is on the Tuesday, people who are limitless, like they can do a punt, kind of what you were saying, Dan, before, when you don't have to worry about budget at all. But I would not use all 3 slots for City. I would use like 1 or 2, and hopefully a little bit of, like, hopefully the press conference leaks a bit of information, like Cancelo or Foden or someone playing, but it's all going to be a gamble. I don't think there are any safe bets with City other than maybe Edison playing.
Yeah, the squad's out. Obviously the starting lineups are not out, but the squad has been released I'm just having a little look through it now. And Kyle Walker and Cancelo are both in the squad. There's nothing here other than obviously Aguero's injury. So Tommy Doyle's in again. That is giving anything away because everyone's involved that you'd expect. Even Nathan Ake is back. If you're on a Limitless, I wouldn't go anywhere near them anyway. I think Porto are playing quite well.
Yeah, they are.
So we'll go on to Porto. They won 1-0 at the weekend. Diaz scored yet again. Oliveira was subbed off, so he's had a nice extra rest, as was Diaz and Corona. I'd go for Oliveira. You know, he's written on my list of, I've written down 4 midfielders, I think. But I want 5 midfielders that I want. Because I've got 3 transfers to make. And I know that at least one of them is going to be midfield, if not 2. With Fatty needing to come out, and I'll probably bring out Gundogan now. And Oliveira's a really good shout with him being the penalty taker. And if Fernandinho's playing and he's played 20 minutes in the last 6 weeks, I fancy Porto to exploit that. Cameron, what do you make of Porto?
Based off the recent form, I think they might go in with the upper hand and a bit more confidence in this game than Man City, because they've scored quite a few goals, especially in the last 5 games. They've scored 3 goals in multiple games and then 2 in the other ones. So I think based off attack and threat, I think Porto might have an upper hand. And defensively, they've only conceded 1 in the last 5. While Man City are notoriously shaky at the back. And especially if they're jumbling around the defence as well with taking out Benjamin.
What I will say about Man City's defence, though, Cameron, is the last 3 games they've kept clean sheets in the Champions League.
I was about to say.
So, obviously, they conceded against Porto, though, and I am in agreement that I think Porto's going to cause them some problems. But as far as the Champions League go, I don't think 1 goal conceded in 4 games is fair to call them shaky.
Olympiacos and Marseille, they aren't really going to threaten the area, are they?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would say Porto maybe have an upper hand in this game, just based off confidence.
Aaron, is anyone that you've seen from Porto that strikes your fancy?
There's a lot of interest in the defence because they are getting transferred in a lot. They're quite budget friendly. And the goalkeeper, especially because all of the other 5 million options went up in price and he didn't last game week. He has now, but he was actually one of the more solid goalkeepers, and with 3 back-to-back clean sheets. And with Olympiacos next week, he could be a good option again for a good goalkeeper. So for this game week, though, they're not really on my radar. And I think the Man City are going to win, regardless of the team that they put out, or at least draw. I don't think it's going to be. I think Man City will get top spot solidified, and then they'll just field a completely reserve starting 11 next week in the Champions League.
Yeah. Do either of you have anything to say or suggest about Olympiacos, or can we just literally say no?
I've never seen them play.
Yeah, for this game, Marseille, Olympiacos, both of them are out. Both teams are a huge gamble. Just move on.
Yep.
If you have any specific questions about it, ask us on Twitter at UCL Fantasy Pod.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think we should just move on.
I'd say about Marseille, if you've got something, maybe going on in your brain that's not quite right, and you think, I need a punt, Marseille with Tovan or Payet is a crazy choice, but one that I could see coming off for people. I think the worrying thing would be that they've got Manchester City the week after, so that pretty much puts that dead in the water. But if you need a huge differential, Marseille are at home against Olympiacos, and I think that's going to give them the edge. I think Marseille will score against Olympiacos. Can you pick which one? It's not a gamble that I'm willing to take, But again, if you're feeling like you're a little bit crazy and you want to make that guess, then I don't think that's to be overlooked. And it would be Thauvin or Payet, one of the two, probably Thauvin. But again, that's a huge punt. We've gone to Group D, where there are a lot more reasonable options. So top of the group with 9 points is Liverpool. Feels like the wheels are coming off a little bit. Jurgen Klopp is somewhere between Jose Mourinho and Kevin Keegan territory with his post-match interviews at the minute. We've said on a previous podcast, we agree that Liverpool should not be playing on a Tuesday or Wednesday and then getting a 12:30 kickoff on a Saturday. I don't like how he talks to journalists in terms of, you did this, you did that. I've worked in places where customers say to me, oh, you did this. I'm like, I've not done anything. And fair enough, Jurgen Klopp said later on in the interview, I don't mean you personally, but you've already antagonized the person interviewing you. That's not going to help. And I appreciate he's feeling the pressure. He feels like some decisions have gone against him. Liverpool drew 1-1 with Brighton at the weekend. What I would like to say, which has really annoyed us, and I've kept my mouth shut on Twitter, is there is so much talk about VAR's use over the Andy Robertson penalty where he's kicked Welbeck and he's went down and then they've got the pen through VAR. I guaranteed you not a single person was complaining when they thought Mane had scored, despite the fact that never in a month of Sundays was that a foul or yellow card against Ben White. It's like absolutely crazy that was ever a foul. But I bet there's no complaints. I bet if that had stood, no one would have went, oh, that wasn't a foul. So I think it's a bit rich for them then to kick off when Andy Robertson has kicked someone. Whether it's harsh or not, or whether it's soft, I do think it's really soft. But he's still done it, and he's still given the referee decision to make. Klopp's interview on BT, I don't think was too bad. I thought was actually really good from both sides, from him and Des Kelly. What I didn't like was his BBC interview, where he completely condescended the interviewer, where he asked if he thought was a penalty. And he said, well, do you think it's a penalty? Which I hate, absolutely hate when people do that. When you've asked them a question, they just ask the same question back without answering. It's the interviewer's job to interview, and it's the manager's job. He gets paid a lot of money to answer those questions. And it's not an edgy question. Do you think it's a penalty? And then obviously when he says, oh, it's soft, but I think it was the correct decision, he says, well, I'd like to speak to someone who knows just a little bit about football. I mean, I'm sure this journalist, although he hasn't played football, knows a lot about football, spends his life around football. And when people in the studio have said, and that was his answer, well, actually, people in the studio who know a lot about football have also said it's a penalty. And Klopp looks a little embarrassed. I just think, don't talk to people like that. I appreciate that you're frustrated, that it's a high-pressure job, but it's not the interviewer's fault. And just speak to people with a little bit of respect, because as a neutral, I've loved Klopp. I loved him at Dortmund. I've been a big fan of him since he came through the door at Liverpool. And one of the reasons why I was fairly happy to see Liverpool win the league last year was because of Klopp. He's now in serious danger of alienating people like me. And I'm sure Liverpool fans will not give two chuffs at all about neutral fans liking them and not liking them. But he is starting to just cross that threshold now where he's starting to be disrespectful to people. And I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's a sign that the wheels are coming off in his mind. And this is a game coming up against Ajax where either Liverpool are going to pull out an unbelievable performance, like a true Klopp-inspired Jordan Henderson in the middle of the field, heart and soul performance, or we are going to see what did happen to Newcastle in 1996. I appreciate this team is a million times better than that team. They've actually won something, and player for player, they are a much better team. But still, we've seen it with other great teams. We've seen it with Chelsea teams that have won the league and then finished 10th the next year. That it can all go incredibly right or horribly wrong in this next game. And I can't wait to watch it. What do you guys think? Cameron, what do you think?
Well, I agree with you on what you said about Klopp, because I watched the Ben Foster YouTube video and he asked the reporter who was interviewing him after the game, said, what do you think of the game? And the reporter went, written in his contract, he said, not allowed to have an opinion on the game. So that BBC reporter probably could have lost his job for giving his opinion on the game or being heavily disciplined. But no, against Brighton, I think Brighton played much better than Liverpool. I think Liverpool obviously showed the class of points by scoring a couple of disallowed goals, but they also showed how easily they can switch off, especially giving away the 2 penalties. Where Neco Williams giving a clumsy foul in the box and Andy Robertson just swiping at Danny Welbeck. They missed Jordan Henderson in the first half against Brighton. And then when he came on, he just sat in front of the back 4, and I think he helped Nat Phillips just a bit more. He just helped the 2 centre halves just do the job and just coach them into what position they need to be in, where they need to be, how to read the game on the pitch. And you can see in previous games where he hasn't played and they've been outclassed in that midfield just because he is not there to receive a ball when no ball is on, and he can just easily just get it out of danger and then run, get it back. He's comfortable on the ball. So yeah, they missed someone like that against Brighton, and in previous games they haven't looked special. And going back to the penalty they got against Brighton, Salah got a one exactly the same, I think, against West Ham, and no one complained about that. And no one complained that was not a penalty. So I think it just goes both ways.
I'd be furious with Robertson. He's a world-class left back. He is the best left back in the world, I think. Pretty confident he is.
Yeah.
He's just wildly swung at it, and not one person's held him accountable for it.
Yeah.
It's VAR or the referee's fault. Well, wait there a minute. You've just swung an air shot and kicked someone's foot. It is soft. It's very soft. And it's one of them where you roll your eyes and go, oh, that is a pen.
And Welbeck did look at the referee and go, oh, go away.
Aaron, what do you make of Liverpool?
I think my only disappointment about this game is that it didn't happen on the Wednesday so that Anfield could have a few fans in it. I think it would have just added to the stakes and the pressure of Liverpool's first home performance, having fans back. So that's like kind of my letdown for this game, but I'm quite excited to see them because Ajax they don't care about what Liverpool are going through right now. They're not going to take it easy on them because you've got a few injuries here and there. They're going to just show no respect to Liverpool. They're going to try and give them a good game. And in terms of like limitless stuff like that, I think you having Salah or Mane in your team are still very, very good options. It worked out for me anyways, having them 2 weeks ago when they both scored and assisted. But Jota, I don't know if it's just me, but I'm having kind of apprehensions about him because, yes, he's doing really, really well, but he's kind of the only one who's not getting injured or having COVID. So, like, are they going to rest him? Are they going to bring him on as a sub? Like, I think they should play him, me personally, but with the amount of injuries and stuff going on, I don't know whether they would want to kind of put more emphasis on midfield and have Jota coming on as a sub if they need him. So that's an apprehension I have.
I think Klopp's history suggests that he'll just play his strongest team. He doesn't care. I've been absolutely amazed. Sometimes I'm thinking, oh yeah, like it's the third game in 7 days, so Salah will be getting arrested. Plays 90. It's like, wow. Yeah. Klopp just doesn't care. And I think this is a game, after he's got a bit of stick at the weekend for, some people have praised him, some people give him stick, some people have been quite neutral about it. They've drawn the game. I think he's going to want to come out with a bang. I think that's going to be the focal point, and Henderson is going to be the embodiment of Klopp on that field. But that's all fine and good, which is fantastic. And I think we should now move on to Ajax as well. So we still talk about Liverpool, but because they're playing each other, Dusan Tadic, if he gets the ball, you can have all the heart in the world, but it's not going to stop his class against a shaky defence now. Andy Robertson is someone that I still would look at if I'm on Limitless, especially playing a Tuesday. You can sub him out on the Wednesday if you need to. And I think it's a good risk to take because of his attacking threat. And Liverpool do have a good defensive record. They've only conceded 2 goals, which was last week against Atalanta, and they kept a clean sheet in the last game against Ajax. That being said, on Limitless, I would strongly consider Dusan Tadic. He was subbed off at the weekend along with Traore and Anthony. They were the front 3. Tagliafico was rested. Klassen, Labiad, Traore, Ekelenkamp and Promes were the goal scorers in a 5-0 win. So again, Labiad in midfield has got another goal, but he played the full 90, so I'm not sure about rotation, and I think Liverpool will be a bit too much for him. But if Traore can get another start, I appreciate a lot of people are frustrated with him at the minute, but he's your budget forward. He's the one that is in there with a little shot of getting your points, but also facilitates the other positions so that you can go big elsewhere. So I don't think you should be overly frustrated with him. And against Liverpool's defence, again, Ajax have got a good chance. I thought they were really unlucky in the first game. In Liverpool's defence is just even worse now because of, I think they had Van Dijk injured at the time anyway for that game, but now they're without Gomez and Trent, who were available in that game. So I can see Ajax, and particularly Tadic, because he usually plays left in the front three, attacking whoever's playing right back. I imagine James Milner's going to be playing right back.
He's injured, hamstring.
He's on his hamstring. Yeah, right, okay. So Tadic versus Liverpool's right back.
Neco Williams.
Yep.
Who's listed as a midfielder on the game.
Yeah.
How?
Madness.
Yeah, I had to check. And I don't think Liverpool will keep a clean sheet, but then again, I've said that this whole season, and all they've done is kept clean sheets except last game. And in that game, I wasn't expecting Liverpool to not score. I thought they would at least get one against Atalanta. And so I think that Klopp has a lot to put right. And so I think Ajax will score. I think Liverpool will score. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. The last time the two teams faced, Ajax were unlucky not to get the draw or even win. And there's so much to put right. But being at Anfield, regardless of whether there's fans or not, although it does help, I do think that Liverpool, I've personally said that they'll struggle and then they seem fine. They've got Fabinho back, and I think that it'll be a 2-2 draw. So attacking wise, great. Robertson, get him in your limitless because he'll probably get an assist or something like that. He takes free kicks and corners. So I think only look at attacking talents. I wouldn't try and be smart. The only one I would try and look at considering is maybe Fabinho. Although he's listed as a midfielder, there is a good chance of ball recoveries at 5.9 if you need a budget option. But other than that, I think it just attack.
We'll ignore Midtjylland. I've got nothing to say about them. If you've got Kajust still in, great. I don't think you want anyone else. We'll just say him every week for 4.5 million in ball recoveries. We'll just go into Atalanta, who lost 2-0 at the weekend. Horrible news for Galini, who got subbed off injured again. I'm sure you can talk to us about that, Aaron. But that means Sportiello's back. Really sad because Galini's been out for so long already, and I think it's the same knee issue. They look like they played a rotated defence as well, so losing 2-0 isn't great. But obviously they're playing Midtjylland, so we have to target Atalanta players. What are your feelings on Atalanta, Aaron?
They were quite unlucky on the weekend. They had so many opportunities. The Verona keeper was just having it in one of his inspired games, just saving just anything that came. And I know that doesn't fill a lot of people with confidence, but Atalanta are still making loads of chances. And Verona are doing quite well. They're in the European run-in. They're above Lazio. They're not far behind Roma and Napoli. And Verona are kind of the surprise team in the Italian league. So I wouldn't take it really, really hard. I think that Verona and Atalanta this season are kind of level on the playing field. But I think the biggest thing for me is the fact that this is the first time in a long time, I think since the Valencia game, that Zapata, Ilicic and Gomez are all playing at the same time. And so they're trying to get their groove back. You could see it was quite rusty. There was a couple of times where Zapata had a clear shot, but he passed it to Ilicic. And then Ilicic, just coming back to full fitness, missed the target. Or passing to Gomez, who would then look for the other two. So they're kind of trying to assist each other rather than being ruthless. I guess the positive that they're creating loads of chances still. The negative is that they're really focused on trying to be good teammates rather than being ruthless. So I think one of them will have a big return, but I can't see all three of them. I guess it's just a gamble, kind of throwing a blind dart at who that's going to be. For me personally, I would go as Zapata, just because he is going to be the ruthless one. out of the three he scored in the return fixture, I think, in the reverse fixture, sorry, with these teams, and Hatterbo and Gosens look like good options as well.
Would you go for Ilicic at all?
He's playing. He got a lot of chances. I think because of the personal story that happened to him last year, I think Atlanta are trying to get him back into his groove. If you weren't going on a Limitless, though, I wouldn't personally. Although Atlanta are not likely to rotate in game week 6 because of having to play Ajax next week. So if it wasn't a Limitless, though, no, I would rather go for Zapata if you could. Like I said before, it's just kind of a blind dart. One of them is going to turn big. I just can't call it, to be honest.
From what I'm seeing, obviously I'm not as knowledgeable on Atlanta as Aaron is, but
Thanks,
they seem
Cameron.
to have. Oh, you're welcome. Just feeding the compliments. They haven't seemed to have scored a lot of goals. I know this was part of your point, Aaron, where they've created chances just can't hit the target. But that was Atlanta's big thing last year, where they just outscored the opponent by just flying forward. But this year, they're just, I mean, especially recently, maybe it's the short break catching up to them. Obviously, they were in the Champions League bubble. So maybe it's that short break catching up to them where the players are just a bit fatigued and lacking rest. So
yeah, they're not a young side, are they?
No, they have got a very experienced side as well. So they could definitely be lacking in a rest.
Yeah, and I think what the struggle is as well is that all of them are subbed each week because obviously there's still 5 subs. So Muriel pretty much always comes on, and Lamas keeps coming on, and like all of them are getting subbed, and so you run that risk of going back to your question, Dan. I think Ilicic is the most likely to be subbed first. So unless he scores in the first half, he runs a risk of being substituted for Muriel, who comes on, and he's kind of their super sub. So it's just too much risk for me to bring them in unless you already have them in your team. And then if you are looking to transfer one in,
so these games from now on are all
like
played on Wednesday, which means if you are
and the
looking
others won't,
at transfers
and
and there's a toss of a coin, we'd go with these ones less, to be honest. Just you want to be trying to load up as much on Tuesday players. So we'll start with the league leaders or joint league leaders. Chelsea drew 0-0 with Tottenham. It was an all right game. I didn't find it overly entertaining, to be honest, especially without fans for a big derby like that. Sevilla won 1-0. And Naziri scored again, came off the bench. Rakitic was fully rested. These two play against each other this week. I think it's a case of if you've got them, stick, just as before with Barcelona. Sorry, not Barcelona, with Bayern Munich. And if you don't have them, I wouldn't twist. There's no, we just don't know what this game's going to throw up. Is it going to be another 0-0? Is it going to be a 1-1? Is one team going to nick it? And I just don't think it's worth targeting. But if you've got some of these players, it's also not worth getting rid of. Do either of you have a different opinion on this?
No, not really.
No.
Short and sweet. No, we're done. It's not worth wasting your transfers for it.
We don't know if Banu's back yet or not after having COVID. So just try and keep an eye out on that, really. But other than that, there's nothing we can really say. Obviously, your Tuesday keeper should have played by then anyway, so the decision might be taken out of your hands regardless. And it's just the same with Sevilla. If you've got their players and you can keep them, I'm not overly confident on them in terms of which one I think will deliver. Rakitic is the most likely. And again, if it is 0-0, the defenders could be a good shout, but I don't want to be taking risks if I don't already have them. I've got Banu and Koundé myself, so they'll just stay where they are. No dramas.
It is a very nothing game.
I'm not going to do either of you want to talk about Krasnodar versus Rennes. No, just don't get them in. I mean, someone's got to get points in this game, but then they've also got to play either Chelsea or Sevilla afterwards, respectively. And yeah, they might face heavy rotation, but I just don't think it's worth the risk. I think if you were going to go for either of these teams, I'd go with Rennes because they've got to play Sevilla last, and with Sevilla already qualified, I think the Chelsea game will decide a lot. And I think Sevilla will really heavily rest players for that last game. So if you were going to go with either one of them, I'd go with Rennes, but I wouldn't be in a rush. Group F, We'll start with the league leaders there. Dortmund with 9 points. Lovely at the top here, poised with Lazio 8 points, Bruges 4, and Zenit with 1. Dortmund lost 2-1 at the weekend. Royce, Haaland, and Sancho all played a full 90 minutes, and it took Gio Reyna coming off the bench to assist Torgan Hazard, who also came off the bench, for them to get a consolation goal. They played a fairly strong team, to be honest. So, again, Dortmund proving that they just can be nothing but inconsistent. Is there anyone that you think we should target for these games, Cameron?
Haaland, obviously, because he did that crazy stat that went around. I don't know if it's real or not. I saw the 71 goals and 90 shots or something. Was it like that?
Yeah, no, it's fake. He's actually scored 90 goals with just 71 shots.
Ah, right. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's they got silly them getting it the wrong way around. I think it's he scored that many goals off that many shots on target. I think is the semi-real stat,
but
not just general shots.
Even so, he's an absolute goal-scoring machine.
He is.
And although what I said to Nathan in the last game week that no one should get Sancho because he hasn't been doing well this season with in terms of goals and assists. And then he turns up last game week and scores and makes us look stupid. So he could be one that you go for.
You don't need Sancho to make you look stupid, Cameron.
And then in terms of Lazio, you could just easily hand it over to the Italian correspondent. But Ciro Immobile scoring 2 last Champions League game against Zenit. Obviously, they did get beat 3-1, but Immobile did score a penalty against Udinese.
Yeah, this weekend they got beat 3-1, yeah.
They seem to change their entire midfield in one defender. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yeah, so I remember last week that we were talking about all the cute little penalty run-ups that people do now. Immobile's was the complete opposite, just run, absolutely smashed it into the top corner. That's a penalty we like to see. Lazio still unbeaten in this Champions League group. They beat Dortmund this in the reverse fixture, but I think just with their inconsistency, you just don't know which Lazio are going to turn up. You can have the one that turned up on the weekend that lost to Udinese, even though Udinese played really, really well.
Watford's B team.
Or you could get the Lazio that beat Dortmund and are unbeaten and looking to make a bit of distance between them and Bruges. So, yeah, you just don't know which ones are going to come up. So, as a result, just stick with what you know. Don't overthink it. Don't try and look for a punt with this team, especially playing on the Wednesday. If you are going to go for a striker, go for Immobile. Like if you wanted to get one from Lazio. And in terms of midfielders and defenders, I just wouldn't touch them if you have to transfer them in. They're just not worth the risk, and I think Dortmund are going to win this game in the end. I think they might get one consolation goal, Immobile returning to Germany, returning to that stadium, in fact. So they might get one. They might get one consolation goal, but I don't think they'll win this game. But this is where Lazio always prove me wrong. And that's the fun part about watching them as a team.
Yeah, tough to predict this one. I do agree. I think Dortmund will get the win, and I think Haaland is just a must. You just get him in. Doesn't matter who he's playing, he can get a goal. I think he's as far as target score, the number one striker to have in the game, and his records prove that at the minute. Third in the table, Bruges drew 0-0 at the weekend. Our boy De Ketelaere played a full 90 minutes at left back. So he's played up front, he's played in midfield, he's played at left back. Yeah.
He's the James Milner of Belgium.
He's the John O'Shea of Belgium.
What a player.
Well, maybe for Sunderland. You can keep him.
It could be new manager.
Let's not. Bonaventure came off the bench. So it looks like his tiff with the manager might be over after last week. Ritz and Diatta were completely rested. Vanaken and Vormer played a full 90 minutes. I think Bruges will have their sights set on qualification still. 4 points behind Lazio. So I think they know that they've got to go and win this game and have Dortmund win, which would have Lazio on 8 and Bruges on 7. and then it's Lazio versus Bruges for the final game. So I think it'll be all guns blazing for Bruges. I'd say the players that you'd want really are going to be Vanaken. I think he's the one. And maybe Bonaventure up front. But that wouldn't be my first choice of team to go to. I think it's more so on a budget. If you're looking for budget players to fill up your team, Vanaken or Vorma. And I would now avoid De Ketelaere because he seems to be playing left back. Whereas he was good when he's playing up front. But not anymore.
To be fair, 4.5 potential for ball recoveries. It's not too bad.
But he's a midfielder on the game, and he's not going to get that clean sheet point.
Compare him to other 4.5 midfielders. At least he's playing, and like we're not looking for ball. We're not looking for goal scorers at 4.5. We're looking for people who are going to play and get a few little bonus points, like a little few ball recoveries here and there. Like I think we're maybe holding him to his game week 1 performance when he's priced at 4.5 for a reason. I think he's one of the best 4.5s around, especially playing Zenit.
Yeah.
He's someone to stick on the bench.
The other 4.5 million midfielder is also in this game, Barrios. He got booked again at the weekend in a 0-0 draw. They played a strong team, Zenit, a really strong team, and they got a 0-0. So they're totally out of sorts, and I think they've got the Shakhtar syndrome where they got off to a bit of a flyer in the league, and they'd played games whereas other teams hadn't, and they've still only got 1 point. I can't see them doing much more. I think that's them done, to be honest. I think Bruges will win this one again. 2-1, 2-0. I thought Bruges are unlucky to get the results against Dortmund in some respect because they played really well, especially in that first game. If they can just keep the confidence up, I think it'll be a good win for them in this game. And then it's going to be an absolute cracker against Lazio. And that's what I'm hoping for. So I'm hoping for a Dortmund-Bruges win so that a Bruges-Lazio game can have a real edge to it.
Yeah, I agree. Exciting times in that group, unlike some of the others.
Speaking of non-exciting times, Group G. Barcelona won 4-0 at the weekend. Griezmann can dance now. He's allowed to dance after his absolute stunner. 2-2 for him. Messi with a great goal and obviously his tribute to Diego Maradona. Braithwaite in goal. Pardon?
I was about to say Martin Braithwaite got a goal as well.
Yeah, Braithwaite got a goal again. Smoggy legend. Jordi Alba played a full 90, so is he going to play? And Serginho Dest was subbed off, so that's likely that he will play. Longley got injured. We don't know how long he's out for, but I don't think he's worth the risk at all, especially with them playing Wednesday. It's not something that you can have in and then pull out. So, Cameron, I know you're Limitless Wildcard and you had him in, but it's not something that I'd look at personally, especially with him playing on a Wednesday.
I haven't clicked confirm yet.
And I don't know why Messi didn't get subbed off at the weekend. That's worrying. That suggests that he might not play. I just think he's in his 30s. You're winning 3 or 4-0. Take him off. But, Koeman doesn't want to do that, so fair enough. But if I was the manager, 4-0 after Messi's just banged one in, I'd tell him to keep your shirt off and then just come straight off. Be like, well done. Everyone giving him applause, and it can be an even more special moment. But he doesn't need to play another minute after that, but he played the full 90, so I'm not too sure what's going on there. Mingueza is likely to step in, but, Busquets can play there. De Jong can play there. It's centre-back for Longley. They've got a really good chance of absolutely smashing Ferencváros. What do you think of this game, Cameron?
Mingueza, the centre-back, he played the full 90 alongside Longley until he got injured. But then they brought on Carlos Elena, who is naturally a central midfielder.
Yeah.
I think he at one point when he was a bit young, he was labelled as like the next Messi not Messi, Iniesta and Xavi.
Yeah, he was.
Like that sort of player. So him dropping into centre back might be a risk if they do that. But then on the other hand, they could maybe move Junior Firpo into centre back with him having a little bit of height. I think it'll be an easy Barcelona win. I don't think there's much else to say than.
I think the issue for me in this game is I wouldn't know who to pick. Aaron, any thoughts on the Barcelona team or Ferencváros?
Yeah, looking at who got the most match week points last week, because obviously I think that's what they're going to do. I don't think Messi will play. I think that Dest, he was substituted on the weekend. Yeah, Braithwaite. I would look at some of their budget options. Look at the game allows you to filter match week points. Who got the most points last week? I would go on there to kind of get an idea on who's going to play in a new Barcelona game. I just don't think they'll risk their star players. The one player who I'm looking at is Dest, and you can maybe look at ter Stegen if you're worried about maybe a Neuer or Allison or anyone like that. Ter Stegen against Ferencváros looks like a good pick. I mean, you just don't know, do you? So I think the only plus side is that normally on the Tuesday morning, Barcelona give a heads up about who's in their Champions League squad. And last week we got a bit of a notice that Messi wasn't in it. So that's my only advice, is look who's on there.
Aaron, we're going to need you to clear Juventus up here. They won 1-1 at the 1-1. Good result. They drew 1-1 at the weekend. Morata scored again. Was then sent off
after the final whistle.
So if he's ineligible now for Serie A, he might be more likely to start Champions League games because he won't need a rest anymore. But the big thing was I didn't see Cristiano Ronaldo in the squad at all.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything to be worried about there?
Yeah, he broke his ankle in training. No, I'm joking, he didn't. Pirlo came out and said that he was resting him for the Champions League. He said that the Champions League is why Ronaldo came to this team, and so it's only fair that he plays in it, and rested him completely for this game as a result. So he said that in the interview. So Ronaldo is a go. Morata is probably going to be the one who plays with him, although Dybala looked quite impressive this past week. He was the captain for Juventus this last week. So it's a lot of trust being placed on Dybala. I think it's kind of just trying to motivate him, but nothing to worry about for Ronaldo. I think you can keep him in your team for those who transferred him in.
Aaron, what about Bonucci? Because on the app it says he's injured, but he was on the bench.
Yeah, he's not at full strength yet. And to be honest, I wouldn't, with his price point, I wouldn't keep him in. Yeah. And I think there's better options for Limitless. Yeah. And I think you could make a decent transfer for Bonucci because there's other people at that price point, like Angelino, stuff like that. Like, I would look at getting him out personally. I just don't think that even in reverse fixtures, we were expecting Juventus to keep a clean sheet and they didn't. And so Bonucci played, and I wouldn't have him in your team. So put your bets on a Bonucci first goal scorer.
And I don't think we're not recommending anyone from Dynamo, are we?
No.
Oh yeah?
No.
Thanks for the suspense.
I couldn't pronounce the name, so just stay away.
Fair enough. In the last group H, on a knife edge, this one as well. Man United top of the group, the 1-3-2 at the weekend, the Bruno Fernandes show. Once again, saving the day, although Edison Cavani played a huge part in that comeback as well after going 2-0 down. Coming off the bench, got a goal and an assist. Did he have 2 goals? So I think don't overcomplicate it. Tellez is a good shout. Fernandes is a good shout. Rashford will always be a good shout. And honestly, Cavani has been excellent, so I don't see why you wouldn't go for them.
Against his old team as well, kind of a point to prove. I think he seems like a good bet, but whether he starts or not is a different question.
Yeah, I think he deserves the start. I'd like to see him play, especially against his old team. I think you'll be having a word with Ollie as well to say, if I can play one game, this is the game.
Yeah.
Because I think you'll have a point to prove to PSG to say, I'm better than Icardi, essentially. And I'm better than Moise.
Which he is.
Which he yeah.
Yeah.
Leipzig won 2-1 at the weekend. Angelino, the boy, scoring again. And Nkunku got another goal as well. So the 2 players that were said that were like the look of a few weeks ago, they're the ones that are still coming up trumps for them. Against Istanbul Basaksehir, plow into him. I'd honestly definitely go for Angelino. I can see another clean sheet. Fingers crossed. Don't want to jinx it. Been a bit of a nightmare against Istanbul recently. But the 1-2-0 in the first game, Forsberg was completely rested at the weekend, and he's the penalty taker, so that's always a shout this season. Is there anyone from Leipzig that you guys would look at?
I think Angelino's just the main one because he's very solid and he can get that attack and return.
I've got Angelino and Glassy in my team, so
Yeah.
I'm really hoping for a clean sheet.
Yes, you are.
That was another one, Glasky, because I had him in my team at the first couple of game weeks, and he was quite a high point scorer.
At the bottom of the table, remarkably, PSG, they drew 2-2 this weekend. Lots of players back, though. Neymar and Moise Kean in the goals. Di Maria was rested. Essentially, if they've got a player in their squad, they're now fit. Everyone seems to be back except for Julian Draxler. So I think the Man United game is a fair game to go in on them. But obviously, you're going to be looking at that Istanbul game, really, that you want them in, because everything is to play for in that group, as they are bottom with Istanbul. I wouldn't go for anyone from Istanbul personally. Obviously, they've got that midfielder that I still can't pronounce his name, and he has a shot from 50 yards out 3 times a week. Vishka, I think his name is. So I wouldn't really go for Istanbul, but PSG, I think, even though they're playing Man United are still frail. They are still struggling against certain opposition. So PSG could be a good team to go in on. That being said, PSG themselves are struggling. They're not in great form. And Neymar and Mbappe are just too expensive. If I was going to go for any, I'd go for Moise Kean. It's 6 million. And he's scoring goals. I think he's the no-brainer out of that team. Would you go for anyone from PSG, Aaron?
I've got Mbappe in my team just from first game week, and I don't plan on transferring him out. And so looking at making my 2 changes in midfield instead. And so Mbappe will be staying in my team. And fingers crossed he gets a return.
Cameron?
I go for Moise King. He seems to be a new player since joining PSG.
Yeah.
I think just the style of play suits him, and he's started to score like he scored in Juventus. So I think he could be a real shout.
So we'll do our thing again, where we go through all the games and we'll just give our predictions. I've just tried to open up the app there to see the games, and there's an update. So that's updating, which is really, really fantastic timing. So I've just had to get them up on Google instead. So starting with tomorrow's games, we'll go Aaron, you give yours, Cameron, you give yours, and then I'll give mine. Okay? So first up, Shakhtar versus Real Madrid.
Real Madrid win 2-0.
3-1 Real Madrid.
I will go 3-1 as well to Real Madrid. Lokomotiv Moscow versus Salzburg.
Salzburg win 2-1.
Salzburg 2-0.
Salzburg 3-1. Gladbach versus Inter.
3-1 Mönchengladbach.
1-1.
I'll go 2-1 Mönchengladbach. Marseille versus Olympiacos.
0-0.
2-0 Olympiacos.
Ooh, I'll go 1-0 Marseille. So we've got everything there. Atletico Madrid versus Bayern.
Bayern Munich 3-0.
Bayern Munich 2-0.
I'll go Bayern Munich 2-0 as well. Liverpool versus Ajax.
I said before 2-2.
2-1 Ajax.
I think it'll be 1-1. Atalanta versus Midtjylland.
I'm going to go 4-0 Atalanta.
3-1 Atalanta.
I was going to say 3-1 as well, Cameron. Midtjylland will do a clean sheet. I've got double Atalanta, so it's undoubtedly true that Midtjylland will score. Porto versus Man City.
I think it'll be 2-1 Man City.
1-0 Porto.
I'll go 1-1. Istanbul Besiktas versus Leipzig.
Leipzig 2-0.
Leipzig 3-0.
Leipzig 3-1. Krasnodar v Rennes.
Krasnodar 1-0.
Rennes 1-0.
1-1. Man United versus PSG.
PSG 3-1.
Man United 3-1.
Goodness me. I'll go 2-2. Aaron, Dortmund versus Lazio.
I think 4-1 to Dortmund.
Ooh.
Big score. Cameron?
2-1 Dortmund.
I'll go 3-1 Dortmund. Ferencvaros versus Barcelona.
Barcelona 2-0.
5-0 Barcelona.
So casual. Just the 5.
Done.
I'll go with 2-1 Barcelona. Juventus Dynamo Kiev.
Juventus 1-0.
3-2 Juventus.
It's happening. 11-0 Juventus. It's happening. Ronaldo is scoring all 11. It's just got to be true. I'm going to go 3-0 Juventus. That's what I'll go for. Club Brugge versus Zenit St. Petersburg.
Bruges 2-1.
0-0.
Club Brugge 2, Zenit 1. And lastly, Sevilla versus Chelsea.
1-1.
2-0 Chelsea.
I'll go with 2-1 Chelsea. Ruin everyone's clean sheets, especially my double Sevilla if it gets to that stage.
I'll go 1-1 with 2 own goals. Just so no one gets attacking returns either.
Class. I love to see it. And that's it. That's it for today's episode. Best of luck to everyone for the game week. Cameron, thanks so much for jumping on with me and Aaron. And Aaron, as ever, thank you so much. We will be back with our review show as ever. Feels like as much as football never stops, this podcast never stops. So we're right in the mire at the minute. But it's been enjoyable. Love talking to you all. Hope for nothing but green arrows from everyone.